This is Dr. Cindy Roberts-Gray, PhD, a researcher from Galveston who analyzes Galveston schools' disciplinary data yearly and generates a report with an analysis of that data. According to her work, in the last school year, and this is after years of discipline policy advocacy, the percentage of GISD students receiving one or more exclusionary discipline actions during the school year persists in being larger than the statewide percentage. Rebel Note Takers interviewed Dr. Roberts-Gray to gain a better understanding of the school-to-prison pipeline, its connection to Galveston Island, and what, if anything, can be done to remedy this phenomenon.
So summer of 1993 was a big turning point for me. I saw from the porch of my office in East Austin my white 16-year-old son and my black 16-year-old summer youth employment protege targeted by a police jump team. The officers laid hands on my protege. I ran the few steps to the scene, claimed my children, and the police claimed they were just trying to keep the neighborhood safe. Later that day, when I asked the children what they thought about the incident, they said, "No big deal, just the way it is." That's horrifying. I was doing work with the Southwest Key, which was making buku de dollars building disciplinary alternative education programs. I also did evaluations for the school district and for the Austin Drug Court. When I asked a faculty friend at Houston Tillotson why it was that only white nurses who were getting their drug charges expunged, she told me her people knew how to do jail and saw no reason for treatment. I wanted to be doing work that would make a difference I could see, and that was part of the reason for my moving from the big city of Austin to the small city of Galveston. And it also explains why I was so taken with the Prevention Institute's tool for health and resilience in vulnerable environments, because it's a big problem. It's not just children, it's not just teachers, it's not just police, it's housing and everything else. And so that's how I got into it and why I got into it and why, when the Prevention Institute gave us the opportunity to apply for that funding, I jumped on it to help out. What can I do? Well, Austin's a big place, and I saw lots of my reports being used as doorstops, not being used for action. I learned a lot, and I felt what I was doing was important, but I couldn't see it because it's all over the place. I also, in 1999, saw a report on the school-to-prison pipeline that said Galveston had the highest rate of juvenile incarceration in the state of Texas. And so that was part of my decision to move to Galveston too. It's small, and I can see what I'm doing, and I know that this is a problem that was uniquely large in this community, and is to this day. We're still, as one of my friends says, we're still in a plantation mentality here. So black-white disparities in educational opportunity and attainment are constraining economic growth in the U.S. by more than $100 billion a year. And that's according to researchers at the U.S. Department of Treasury. Point out that black-white and Hispanic-white gaps are similar at the beginning of elementary school, but the black-white gaps widen as their schooling proceeds, while the Hispanic-white gaps shrink. Most of the gap widening occurs during those first 8 years of school, and not much, and then it's just flat after that. The researchers point out that differences in discipline rates by race may contribute to those differences in achievement, because Black students are disproportionately suspended and expelled relative to other racial and ethnic groups for the exact same violations. In contrast, the shrinking of Hispanic white gaps are likely driven by development of English language skills. These circumstances signal the wisdom of federal investments in targeted special populations programs to mitigate, for example, language differences. There are no comparable federal investments in helping Black students. The only federal resource focused on racial gaps in the U.S. is the U.S. Department of Education's Civil Rights Data Collection and Reporting, established in 1968. But in 2025, the U.S. Department of Education is on the chopping block. So we're not even going to have the data anymore that shows that the reason we have all these district data is because they're required to report it to the U.S. Department of Education. And if they don't have to do that anymore, we won't even be able to point to the problem. In the Galveston Independent School District, Black-white gaps in reading at grade level or above are wider than 15% at every grade level, wider than statewide. The gap at kindergarten entry was 19 in the district versus 4 statewide. Black students in Galveston ISD receive enough suspension actions that if you hand them out like candy, you can give 1.5 candies to every Black student in the district. If it's Hispanic and white students, you might be able to give as much as a half of a candy to the students in their population groups. Statewide, while the district percentage has wobbled, but remained consistently larger than statewide, the district's discipline actions persistently suspend or expel Black children 3 times as often as they do their non-Black peers. And I'm getting ahead of our questions here, but our Black and Hispanic children are not innately worse behaved or less intelligent than their white peers elsewhere. But the educational opportunities and practices in our homes and in our schools and in our community are apparently not as good as those provided elsewhere in Texas, and not as good as was promised in the Supreme Court Brown versus Board decision. When I moved to Galveston in 2000, proportions of Black, Hispanic, and white students in the district were approximately equal. The aftermath of Hurricane Ike in 2008 shifted those proportions, with Black students the ones most likely to have lost both their home and their school. In the aftermath of that storm, we had lots of Hispanic families moving to the island to do the construction work, the reconstruction work. Then we had a pandemic. And aftermath of the pandemic, the numbers of white students began to have declined in the district, most likely due to a shift that the experience of being in the pandemic created lots more homeschooling for those who could afford to do homeschooling. The distance between Galveston Independent School District academic achievement goals for 2027 are small for white students, almost as small for Hispanic students, but wide for Black students. For example, the distance to the 5th grade science goal at Weiss is 16 percentage points. But for Blacks, it's 50 percentage points. So to get to the goal that the district has set, what are we doing to help that group that is nowhere near that goal? The distance to the college, career, or military ready goal that the district has set at Ball High School is 7 percentage points for white students, but 45% percentage points for Black students. So the implication is that the district should stop putting Black students out of their classrooms so that they have the opportunity to help the district achieve its goals. So first, I need to tell you that the Black-white gap in college-ready graduates was 30 percentage points in the district versus 26% statewide. Hispanic white gaps in college-ready graduates was half that, 17% in the district versus 13% statewide. Both of those all of those are bad data for Black and Hispanic children. That means they're not going to be able, we have large numbers who aren't going to be able to go to college without doing developmental work, or maybe not at all. In 2003, Angela Davis reminded us that when children attend schools that place greater value on discipline and security than on knowledge and intellectual development, they are attending prep schools for prison. Radical change, therefore, includes shifting norms at home, at school, and in the community. I was disappointed that the Future Is Us 1919 policy brief, consistent with the Texas Appleseed 2010 recommendations to ban discretionary exclusionary discipline, has not yet been adopted by the school district. I was impressed with the Future Is Us positive psychology approach at its celebration of the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board that recognized the good works of school teachers. The Future Is Us, I would recommend that the Future Is Us also champion Nia Cultural Center's positive psychology lens for recognizing school principals at campuses where the rate of exclusionary discipline is near zero and the Black-white achievement gaps are less than 10%. And we've done this for the second year now and give prizes to the principals who meet those criteria and just share the information with all the other school districts, trying to say, see, it's possible. Your peers are doing it. And that's based on what was happening. That idea came from what was happening when we had a school superintendent who was using a school performance framework where they set goals and they held the campuses. They just gave them feedback about whether they were doing well or not so well or unacceptable. And so that's sort of the approach that NIA has adopted with its lens on rewarding teachers who make the mark. Okay, so first I want to tell you the size of Galveston ISD's disciplined population is 21% versus 11% statewide. Across the years, there has been a steady decline statewide. So when I first started tracking this, the district and the state were at about the same place. But now you see there's this wide gap open between our district and the state. So when we look across the years, we see that the ups and downs in our discipline, the size of our discipline population is pretty much traceable to disasters like hurricanes and pandemic, and to changes in superintendents. So that means superintendents have a lot of power in this. And the state does provide a template for your discipline policy, but it's the discipline practices that make a difference. So it's sort of less important what the state says is the policy as the way that it gets practiced. But right now we have a new superintendent. So this is a good time to engage the wider community in learning about and advocating for change. Stop being like my child and my protege in 1993 who says that's just the way it is. Teachers often say it's the parents' fault, and we have recent data to show, yes, that's true. It's the parents. The parents are a big piece of it. And a new global study looking at how do you get the best outcomes for children is parenting support. And it doesn't matter what kind of parenting support. This is global, and they have this long list of different kinds of approaches: health approaches, school approaches, housing approaches. Anything you do to help parents makes for better outcomes for their children. And so that's an area where we can all get in the game to say, let's pull together. So the most recent American Bar Association position on exclusionary discipline is that it should occur only when the precipitating event results in bodily harm. Let's all pull together to make sure everyone knows that disciplinary removals from the classroom do more harm than good. As Nelson Mandela reminded us, our children are our greatest treasure. They are our future. All humans everywhere on this earth are 99.9% genetically identical. The remaining 0.1% makes each person unique. Let's get busy at home, at school, in our municipality, in our state, to avoid punishing and focus on helping all our children achieve their best selves, just like the mission statement of The Future Is Us.